What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Jiu Jitsu Junction Podcast. My name is Andre, and I'm here with my buddy Chase. And today we're going to be talking about the factors that lead to lower belts tapping out higher belts. And this is kind of a two-prong problem because we've got upper belts having a lot of trouble accepting being tapped by lower belts because they're higher in the hierarchy, right? And then we have the lower belts going balls to the walls to tap out the higher belts.
Oh yeah, they have a little target on their back, and they definitely feel like they have a target on their back. And it even happens all the way up to black belt. I have a competition today. Thankfully, I have a black belt that accepted, but a lot of times in these matches, the black belts won't compete down. Because I'm a brown belt, they won't compete down just because.
Yeah, the risk to reward for their ego is off,
Man.
right?
Yeah. So it happens all the way up to there, where they're just a completely, they expect that they have the win, they expect that, and that they're not even taking a chance. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in this episode, we're going to go through, I have written down 9 factors. There might be more. We might uncover some. So we're going to go over all of these reasons that this kind of thing happens. And I think that the first place and the easiest place to start is going through like the physical attribute section, right? So if you're heavier as a lower belt, you've got a pretty sizable advantage that kind of makes up for the skill thing, right?
That's usually the guy you see in class, the big, strong, athletic looking guy who comes into class, just bigger, and he's able to kind of hold his weight down on people. And there's a couple submissions that you learn Kimura and Americana, and a lot of times that's it. Like they have success in it, so
keep doing that. Yeah. So like you even talked about the strength part. So the next thing is strength, right? So like being able to have the horsepower to move yourself or your opponent with sloppier technique, that
the ability to squeeze.
The ability to squeeze is a big one, right?
Yeah, that's about people that don't have a good grip, don't have the correct weight, but they're squeezing, as hard as they can, kind of squeezes, or it feels like it anyway, right? So that's,
Yeah, so like those two attributes kind of go together, and that's what most people think about when they think about, okay, well, if you're bigger and stronger, then you have an advantage, but I can overcome it with technique. That's like the whole, jiu-jitsu myth. It's really a myth. You can close the gap with technique when there's a huge discrepancy, but you can't ignore it. That there's a big physical attribute.
Maybe
difference.
There's a point where that crosses. I've had opportunity a couple times to go with 285-pound wrestlers, big wrestling heavyweights. Places where I couldn't win the takedown, but I could on their takedown end up, getting my sweep and ended up on top. But I've had a couple really, really big, and obviously I know I'm 220 plus, so maybe those rules don't apply, but I've definitely went with guys that are way bigger, way stronger. So there's a line there, but I do believe that you can be smaller and with technique overcome that.
Yeah, but it's still overcoming that. Like I guess
that is, yeah.
It's still overcoming that. Yeah. So it's not like we can just be like, yep, yeah, it doesn't matter.
It
always matters.
No.
It's always relevant, right?
Yeah, your technique has to be good enough to overcome it. Yeah, no, that makes, okay. Yeah, because you actually see some upper belts fall apart sometimes when they go with somebody who's a little bigger, a little stronger, because those structures didn't really exist, under stress. They existed when things were easy.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I feel like you see that a lot when you have like people that are not used to having people of equal size in the room.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of places, a lot of jiu-jitsu gyms where there's one big guy.
Yeah.
And everyone else is like kind of like the average population, right?
I'm thankful for our gym.
Our gym has a bunch of huge dudes.
Yeah, you can't get away with being big in our gym.
I'm just
doesn't work.
I'm over 200 right now. I'm unfortunately near 220. And like there are days that I show up and I'm like, holy crap, I am by far the smallest dude here.
Yeah, so we don't run into that.
Yeah. But yeah, so weight and strength always relevant, and kind of connected but different is like athleticism.
Yeah, super, younger, the ability to headstand and hop over, the ability to circle fast.
Mm-hmm.
You see that sometimes the younger, less experienced catches a position, snaps real, maybe a front headlock snap. That's where I see it a lot of times, a snap and a spin.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just on the back so fast. It's like, are they technically better? No, but their athleticism, and they're athletic. They can hop from one side to the other, or they can spin to the back fast.
Yeah, like fast and controlled with power.
Yeah.
And like combining all of those things, God, athleticism is, I think that's probably the most important one.
Yeah, because there's so much that goes into athleticism, right? Like the senses, the ability to feel things,
Mm-hmm.
And put yourself in the proper position. Yeah.
Precise control over exactly where your limbs are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wish I was more athletic.
Me too.
Yeah, and then kind of related to that, cardiovascular fitness. How big is your gas tank?
Oh.
Another thing I could improve.
Yeah, we have a belt. No, same color belt, but I remember a period where all I would do was just like go until I heard him go, and then I would try to submit him like 5 times. First, but that was kind of the routine. Is I would just, and it was when I was a purple belt and he was a brown belt. Now we're the same color belts, whatever.
It's almost not relevant at this point.
It's crazy. It's unreal. But just start running around him, and as soon as he would breathe, it just kind of leveled the playing field.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as I was smart in that first 2.5 minutes,
mm-hmm.
I could avoid getting got.
Getting got, yep.
I could avoid being, tapped. So definitely just being, having more fitness than him.
Mm-hmm.
But for that first 2.5 minutes, you better.
Yeah, I honestly think that this is probably the vector that most people can improve the fastest that would show up in rolling.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, as you go up, and usually age comes with belt
mm-hmm.
level. So, and that usually comes with fitness going the other way, blah, blah, blah. So, it's probably that's the one that you get the most return on. And it kind of nipped that in the butt.
Yeah. Like the building cardio is relatively quick. It's relatively simple, especially building the baseline cardio. Yeah. You go for a fast walk and like it shows up on the mats if you didn't have baseline cardio.
No question. Yeah.
And then like, the adding weight's easy, but it depends on what kind of weight you're adding. And strength, doing a basic strength program will help too. But yeah, then the next thing on the list is like the mobility and flexibility component.
Yeah. Again, that usually comes with a slightly younger, more athletic, in better shape. And their body's just able to do some things that maybe the slightly older, slightly thicker, maybe, desk job where your hamstrings are tightened up, your hips are tightened up, and your body just you can't put your heel behind your head.
Yeah.
I can. But, as my mobility got better, that was something that I saw. And it's funny with I remember a couple, usually it's brown belts that I don't know why, but they're kind of like, you could tell they're a little older. They're speckled gray, and they're all just a little overweight. And you could they're hell for the first like 2 minutes. But usually like if you crunch them up a little bit, they start breathing real heavy, so there's some things like that to do. And that's mobility related, things that they just can't do because of my better mobility.
Yeah, and the mobility and flexibility, that's probably, I feel like that one is probably the hardest for people to decide to commit to.
Yeah, because it's hard to see returns in it, unless you commit to it. Like it usually takes, and kids are obviously, they respond fast at things. It takes about 2 weeks, to really start seeing the return. Man, it's hard to commit to something for 2 weeks. That could be 14 days.
I don't know if you've noticed or you've been watching, but one of the guys at our gym started doing our mobility routine. And his guard passing has gotten better because he's mobile enough to move his legs in a certain way.
I bet.
And I was just like, how he talked about it, and I was like, how often are you doing it? And he's just like once a week. And I'm like, just once a week is doing that? I would have thought you needed to do more. And he's like, oh, it feels a lot better. And I was like, you're supposed to do it a little more often than that. And he's like, it takes me so long right now to warm up, to get through the mobility routine. Maybe once I get past a certain level and it becomes easier to warm up to make the progress on the mobility, I'll be able to do more of it.
I've talked about having the lessons with adults, that anytime an adult comes to me, man, I haven't done it in a long time, I got a little shoulder issue, I got a little hip issue. For the first package that you buy, usually it'll be mobility stuff.
Yeah.
And you're going to look at me after the second day, not because it's easy, but because you're like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. Are we not going to do something better? Like, you'll be dripping. And it takes them 55 minutes to get through the warm-up. The kid's doing 8 minutes.
That's true. I have to say, I wouldn't want to do the kids' warm-up too frequently right now. It's a tough warm up, and I'm very impressed with the kids being able to do it. They're tougher than adults, I swear.
Oh no, definitely the ones we have.
Yeah. So it's kind of we were talking about, we kind of went off on a tangent of why it's important and how to build it. But I want to talk about how it actually ends up leading to those tapping situations, kind of directly. So the weight tires out the upper belt, right? It results in control, and it makes it easier to submit after they're tired out.
Yeah.
The strength makes it easier to execute all kinds of techniques because effectiveness of technique is really strength or power times technical ability. So that's kind of the equation for actually executing something. So adding strength and pretty much any of these other factors, it's like technical ability times attributes.
Yeah.
And all of these are attributes, right? So anytime we bring up any of these attributes, it's going to make it easier to execute.
Yeah.
So you comparatively, when you have any of these attributes, any of them up high enough, it makes it easier for you to execute. So if you're an extremely good power lifter, how clean does your arm drag need to be? Less clean.
The multiplication.
Yeah, because it's a multiplication. There's multiplication. Anyway.
Yeah.
So we I like to think about effectiveness as attributes, which we can build our attributes, and we were talking about that before, times technical ability, which is what everybody likes to focus on, and for good reason.
Yeah.
It's part of the multiplication, right? So all of these people who have all these attributes, they just have an advantage.
Yeah.
It's a serious advantage too, and it's one we can't really ignore. And that's why there are white belts that walk in off the street and they submit blue belts, purple belts.
Yeah.
And it's because of this, right?
Yeah.
The attributes. And then we kind of have our next section of semi-related life experience and skills, right? The obvious one is, do they have a combat sports background that's kind of related? Yeah. Judo, wrestling, sambo, MMA, even the less related things like striking, like Muay Thai has some grappling components, and basically any martial art will have some carryover.
Some type of takedown,
some kind of carryover.
Takedown defense, yes, sir.
Yeah, you're at least familiar with the situation. You have some kind of skill. Like don't get me wrong, a karate black belt is not gonna come off like a modern karate black belt. It's not going to just like come in and just mop up the way a wrestler might.
Yeah.
But it's still an advantage. It's a semi-related skill. It makes it kind of like adds a little bit to the native technique side of the equation, right?
I don't know about a karate black belt. I'm sorry.
It depends. I actually know some karate schools back when I was a teenager living in Georgia that did real grappling. And one of the guys, we wrestled together. And it was the first time we had ever wrestled. And he did a beautiful stiff arm, popped up to his feet, and established a real side control. And I didn't process what that meant until just now. But it was real grappling.
Yeah.
It just depends.
Show me a karate guy.
I'll show you that.
You talked
guy.
about one fucking 16 years ago. I guess so. I guess they are out there. Bruce Lee was there too.
I bet.
There's
he
still
would've...
stories about but there's still fucking stories about Bruce Lee. There are stories and movies about the good karate guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean,
there could be a movie about this guy, this instructor. I'm
this
impressed by him. I haven't
wasn't
heard many of them.
This wasn't an instructor. He was just one of the other guys. He was in the same grade as me.
Okay.
I think
the instructor's ass.
No, the instructor was kind of a scary dude. I showed up once.
You were 16, of course. He was
That's
scary.
Anyway, so like karate notwithstanding, whatever.
I'm sorry.
But like if you have related combat sports skills, you're gonna at least not panic as much, right?
No, for sure. And especially like even for the first 30 seconds as a karate black belt, you're gonna be like, I got this. Oh shit, I don't got this. So you'll have confidence for the first little bit.
No, I still think that they're gonna do better than a nobody. I will
All
make
right.
that assertion.
Better than a nobody.
Better than no skills whatsoever.
But with no skills, you could possibly do the right thing.
It's okay. He'll be broken by one of the other guys.
I'll get off this tangent.
Anyway, so
Karate's not real.
So combat sports experience.
Yeah,
it'll
understood.
help.
No, for sure.
And then like the next category is like things that really help develop general athleticism and body awareness. The best example is gymnastics.
Man, it's so cool. I try to recommend all little kids, if you can, let's do a year or two of gymnastics, I promise. Gage has already passed the point, but Cash will do some gymnastics. He'll do a year or two of gymnastics, picking himself up on rolling, flipping, rings, just to until he's like, okay, I'm done doing this, Dad. I'm like, all right, cool, let's move on.
Mm-hmm.
But he'll do some gymnastics at a lower level, for sure. I think it's amazing. That's grappling strength.
That's all kinds of amazing things for your body.
Yeah.
So that's like that's almost like it hits both sides of the equation, right? We've got we're building the attributes, and we're also like our ability to build techniques will be so much better because of being able to do a controlled flip and a turn and all of
just body
so
awareness.
good. Yeah, there was a gymnast in one of my old gyms, and she was like 130 pounds, and like she would do things on the mats. I was like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah,
and like,
believe it for sure.
And the body awareness was ridiculous. Anyway, so those kinds of really high level of body control sports, probably the second most applicable set of semi-related skills.
Yeah.
After direct combat sports, I'll probably say a gymnast messes you up more than the karate black belt.
As a gymnast, you're not going to be fed a bunch of fakeness. So arguably, the karate black belt sometimes is fed a lot. And I'm saying karate, not.
Okay. The other one that I found fascinating was people who have a background in dance, both men and women, and it has to do with their ability to recreate steps in a sequence.
Oh, I like that. That's interesting. I was going to do some hippie stuff and be like rhythm.
Rhythm too.
Yep.
Rhythm too.
A lot of good jiu-jitsu is rhythmic.
Rhythmic.
Yeah. It's got rhythm. It's on a beat.
Mm-hmm.
That's good jiu-jitsu. Man, that makes sense. Like,
yeah, they're.
And I don't know if I've went with any dancers. I mean, if I've done jiu-jitsu with any dancers.
Yeah, I mean, you have. There are some at our gym that have talked about it, but they don't want to admit to you that they've danced.
Understood. Understood completely.
But it's really applicable. It helps with the development, and it also, dancers tend to be more flexible. They have
body awareness.
Body
right,
awareness,
course,
yeah. The next one is jobs that build attributes. Holy hell! If you have ever grappled with somebody who does pipe fitting, or a goddamn electrician,
concrete work.
We've
got the concrete workers.
Oh, that guy is his grips.
Concrete saws and concrete drills.
Yeah,
because they're standing on a lift with their hands above their head, holding a saw that weighs about as much as they do.
Yeah,
and then they have to prop it up on something and catch the piece they just cut. It's crazy. Yeah, it's pretty intense.
I need to make him give me a video of that so I can see.
And they work him to death too, because he's just carrying big saws around. You got to cut straight lines. It's big, heavy power. Yeah. I played with one at a landscaping job a week ago. It took me probably 3 cuts to kind of get but I mean, if you just held the button, it does this.
Yeah.
So you can't hold it straight unless it's digging into something.
Fascinating.
And this one was only about a quarter the size of the ones he used. Yeah.
No wonder he could just grip and rip anything he wants.
For sure.
Interesting.
And he's trying to be gentle.
Yeah.
Yeah, his grip. He's got a grip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I done tree work was one that was, maybe it was just because of the way I did it. But anytime I worked those manual labor jobs, I would carry limbs certain ways, and I would get strong when I done tree work. But yeah, that adds.
Yeah, there's the blue collar work is incredibly impactful in terms of, because it's like direct grip and man strength.
Yeah, you'll kind of see it in no gi, but when you put a gi on, you're like, holy hell.
Ooh, man.
What does this guy do that's what he does.
Yeah.
And just look at his hands. When he gets done, just look at his hands.
Yeah.
You'll understand. You'll be like, okay, that's why I just got yanked around.
Yeah, there was an electrician in a place where I used to train, and every time he got a cross collar grip, it would take a foot and both hands to break that grip. And then he would grab my leg, and I'd be like, well, at least I can compete with my leg versus your legs. I can't compete against the grips.
Yeah.
My grips cannot defeat his grips. It's just not. It's like a certainty.
Yeah.
So I find that those grip attributes very, very impactful. And you, even if you're a purple belt, brown belt, black belt, if they have a grip on you and you can't break it, and it's a deep collar grip, that's a big advantage.
Yeah. Well, in a lot of those jobs, they're using big tools that vibrate, that shake. It's like their core strength is a little different than most. Their ability to tense up and clamp down for long periods of time, because there's no such thing as holding a drill or holding a big cutting saw for 10 seconds.
No, it's
minutes at a time. It takes 4 minutes to drill one of them holes that I'm drilling at the gym.
Yeah.
Of a hammer drill,
mm-hmm.
And it's just hammer. So, your body's tense. So it's a full on core strength. So. Yeah. Watch out for those guys.
Yeah, and that's just a small list. I'm sure all of you guys have experience with people that you're like, wow, that is freaky, how good his attributes are, and then you find out what the profession is. Share some of those down below. I'm sure that would be an interesting discussion.
Yeah,
we
cool.
want to hear about that. So let's kind of look at solutions and mental shifts on both sides of both like the lower belt and the upper belt, as far as what we can do to make our experience better in this like interplay of lower belts and upper belts, right? Because there's a lot of ego involved, shifting from both sides, right? Yep. So I think the first important solution is to accept that there are people who will have advantages on you, and that's okay. I know.
Oh God, that's how it's going to be.
Yeah.
You mean we're not all equal?
Yeah. You might have an advantage over other people too, but there will be someone else who has an advantage on you. And
oh no.
That's okay.
You mean I'm not always going to be bigger and stronger? Oh God.
Yeah.
That's it though, right?
Yeah. Just accept it. It's just a fact of life, and you're just getting it's. You can ignore it in other areas of life, but you cannot ignore the difference in attributes and skills when it's a one-on-one competitive sport against you.
I've tried to eat a lot this week, and he's still going to weigh more than me. I tried.
Yeah, and it's really okay. And the things that we can do to affect, if we're on the not having an advantage end of things, we need to attack it not just from a technical standpoint. We need to attack it from taking ownership over our own attribute building.
It's funny with the kids I talk about, I don't know, probably a lot of people that watch, video games, whether they played video games or they still play video games. A lot of times when you're building characters, there's attributes, and I talk with my kids all the time about that, and that's what we need to be moving those attributes along the whole journey. Because those are just building. Usually you don't lose it unless obviously you have an injury setback, but most of the time you can just build those attributes.
Well, when you have an injury or a setback, why don't you add some into wisdom?
Man, there's a lot of different places you can feel, and that's how I get our kids to train when they're injured. Like, okay, yeah, well, I've heard Landon tell his mom, I had a cast on my arm, but I work on my jab and my low kick. So to just looking at it as attributes, and we're just building attributes. That's definitely that needs to be happening all the time. And that'll help everything.
Yeah. I don't know if any of you have been playing Baldur's Gate 3 because that just came out. But you're not going to be able to outstrength a half orc if you're a halfling like me. But you could work on your other stuff, right? Yeah. Find other advantages that you can build, and don't neglect the one that you're there's a big difference between, I'm weaker than that guy, but I still lift. Yeah. And I'm weaker than that guy, so I'm going to, run a ton, get my cardio up. Like, you still need to have a minimum amount of horsepower. Yeah. So you kind of have to have some balance in the attributes that you're building.
Yeah, and if we were looking, like a real solution, I would probably try to level out your attributes. You've got time. That's all you have now. And if you've started the journey, hopefully you're not going to stop at blue belt or stop before you get blue belt, stop before you get purple belt. Maybe this is a lifelong journey now. This is a hobby that you're going to hold, you're going to have with, whether with your kids, with, your wife, with your friends, but it's something that's going to happen. So let's build, let's really kind of develop all those little attributes. I've seen guys change their strength over a 5-year period.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. He was going to do jiu-jitsu. He got strong at jiu-jitsu strength. Like one of our guys, Matt Norman, he was like a weight strong, but he changed his strength over the last probably 4 or 5 years to grappling strong. So he just kind of shifted those attributes a little bit. And I would definitely, if this is something you're doing for a hobby for the long, that's the biggest solution. Let's get on our attributes and start rounding them out.
Yeah. And having everything rounded out is great. Put a little effort into developing the things that you're naturally good at. I like that, because if you can naturally put on a ton of strength, then you would be remiss not to kind of like
Be strong.
Yeah. Like I need to get back up to my 4-plate for reps deadlifts and squats. That's
a big change I've done.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was always strong, but I got away from weights because it hurt my body a little bit lifting weights for football, and so I just got back to lifting weights hard, heavy again, because I was strong. And then there was a period where I was like, man, everybody's stronger than me.
Yeah, but they didn't have to be. You can easily be just as strong.
Yeah, 6 weeks to maybe 10 weeks now.
Yep.
Of focus, and his starts shifting back.
Right. So we've talked about the attributes side, right? So we're looking for creating the best possible effectiveness as a grappler. So we'll talk about kind of like the little bit of technique side that can help to improve your experience as either a lower belt or a higher belt, right?
Yeah.
Technique bubbles.
Yeah. Well, for just kind of touch a little bit on everything. We talk a little bit about the ego, and kind of one of the big things that happens when a lower belt taps a higher belt is the higher belt, kind of little egos there. Like, I'm not going to get tapped by this lower belt. And when the lower belt kind of, like we talk about that technique bubble, having answers, not just the arm bar, but when, that upper belt's like, this white belt ain't going to arm bar me, and holds on really tight, and he's not really thinking about escaping them the right way. I mean, if you have a good technique bubble, if you have some things that you're working on and you're developing, and that's where you catch the clean, crispy triangle, or you got the triangle and he just tries to bull his way out, that's where you catch your clean, crispy arm bar. But having a set of, those submission bubbles, those technique bubbles where we can kind of transition, because, belt levels are by the options you have. That's kind of where you're decided at. Usually the white belt goes after the arm bar. They don't get the arm bar is not there. But when that white belt starts making that turn, this is where you start seeing them tapping out those higher belts that are usually able just to hold on because it's a white belt. Mm-hmm. If I stop this singular motion, they don't have a technique bubble yet.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the biggest places that you see. Obviously strength, everything, all the attributes, but that's probably at the core there. Even bigger, stronger. Like, the upper belt should be able to, if the guy, for the most part, should be able to move through those motions and get out of that if they recognize it early, and they should recognize it early. Mm-hmm. So, like, I know that the strength does make a matter at a point. Like, when you're stuck in side control, yeah, but early recognition should come as a higher belt level. And if you're not having early recognition as a higher belt, it's probably because you're clouded by a little bit of ego or a little bit of not paying attention to the moment because of what should happen instead of what is happening.
Yeah.
Because what should happen is when they go, they're going armbar, they're going to get armbar. But that's not what's happening in the moment because they're switching to triangle.
Yep.
So it's kind of rooted in that little bit of ego, that little bit of cloudiness from the upper belt.
Yeah, for sure. So working on the technique bubbles can give a lower belt a chance to catch an upper belt, because they can, if they have it focused in a grouping of techniques, they have a chance of actually having their execution go through.
Yep.
And upper belts, the biggest difference is they have more crispy technique bubbles, right? And that kind of, they have to be present and aware of what's actually happening at the time, right? So there's our, analysis of how lower belts end up tapping upper belts. And, there's a lot that goes into jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Especially with such a big category of physical attributes and a big amount of techniques and technical development. Like, picking and choosing and building it all at the same time, specializing in a few, will kind of make it easier to do the journey. One thing at a time, but bring up your general competency.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
So
I like it.
Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And if you have any comments, we love to hear from you. Otherwise, we will see you in the next video. Cool.
Boom.